In this chapter, we're going to focus on Internet Explorer 10. Why? Well, one, because it comes with Windows 8, and two, because there's actually two different versions of Internet Explorer 10 to look at. One in the Metro style, another in the old desktop environment. So let's begin with a tour of the UI of the new Internet Explorer 10 in the Metro style, which has a tile right here on the start screen. Clicking this tile will launch IE10. And you're going to see a number of differences from what you're used to seeing in Internet Explorer. One, as you look across the top, you don't see a title bar, a menu bar, favorites, etc. All you're going to see is your home page. Down at the bottom is where you're going to see the address bar. And you're also going to see a series of buttons. One for navigating. So if you start moving through various sites, you can move back using the back button. Over here to the right, you'll notice a refresh button to refresh any page that you're looking at. Then the push pin button, which actually allows you to pin this site to a couple of different locations. You can pin it to the start screen itself. You can also pin it to the taskbar. Next, you'll see a wrench. This is where you go to access page tools. And then at the very far right, you'll see a button for moving forward through pages. So if we wanted to go to lynda.com, we could just click in the address bar. And what's going to happen is you're going to see some frequent sites and favorite sites pop up. This is how you get to those sites. Now, I don't see lynda.com as one of my frequent or favorite sites, so I need to type it in. Now, when I press enter on the keyboard, I'll be taken to that site. Notice that I do have a back button now that is usable, so I can go back to the site I was at. I also have, if we move up into the page itself, arrows that appear on the left and on the right-hand side for navigating back and forward. Now, if we don't have a page to move forward to, we won't see the arrow on the right side, but we can definitely go back using the arrow on the left side. Let's do that. It'll take you back to your home page. And now as we move to the right-hand side, there's the arrow that will allow us to move forward to the page we were just at. So that's a quick look at the UI. Notice it's very clean. There's not a lot going on. Of course, it's a lot different when we go to our old desktop environment and look at Internet Explorer there. So that's what we're going to do next. Let's just close this up by moving to the very top. When you see the hand, click, drag it straight down to the bottom and release, and we'll continue from here. As I mentioned in the previous movie, there's actually two versions of Internet Explorer 10 that come with Windows 8. We've already seen the Metro style app, which has its own tile here on the start screen. You won't find a tile to the desktop version of IE10, and you can't actually put one here either. So we need to go to the desktop to explore the user interface of IE10 in this environment. Let's move down to the taskbar at the very bottom where you will find Internet Explorer. And giving that a click will take you to the desktop version. And it's more traditional, more probably what you're used to seeing in previous versions of Internet Explorer. Of course, across the top is where you'll find the address bar. You may also see a menu bar. You may not. But let's just right-click up here anywhere to see check marks next to the bars that are visible and no check mark next to the ones that aren't. So if you want to turn on the menu bar, that's something you like, just click it. I like the favorites bar, so I'm going to choose it as well. And you'll notice the favorites bar now shows up right below. There's nothing on there yet. If we haven't used it and haven't saved any favorites, we won't see anything except for this little icon way over here on the left, which means we could add the current page to our favorites bar. Let's right-click again and turn on the command bar. It shows up over here on the right-hand side. I like this one, especially for my home button, which will take me to my home page. We'll right-click one more time and turn on the status bar. It appears across the bottom of your screen, and you can do things like change the zoom level from here. All right, so we do have back and forward buttons as well. In the address bar, we'll just click. Everything's highlighted, so we can type right over it. Let's type lynda.com. And when we press enter, we're taken to that page, and now the back button is accessible. So we can give it a click. It'll take us back to our previous page. Now we can go forward to lynda.com. Let's try our home button here. By clicking it on the command bar, it takes us directly to our default home page. And if you haven't changed anything, MSN is your home page here in Internet Explorer 10. You also have some buttons across the top here. You'll notice a home button here. So you may not need the command bar like you used to. We also have the star representing favorites, and here's where we go to view them. And we can access settings as well. The little cog icon is where we go to the tools, and there are keyboard shortcuts for each. Alt-X for the tools, Alt-C for our favorites, and to go home is Alt-Home. So that's how we navigate and change our user interface here in Internet Explorer 10 in the desktop environment. There's much more we can do with Internet Explorer 10 in both environments, and we'll continue with that in the next movie. Although we get two different versions of Internet Explorer 10 here in Windows 8, the desktop version we're looking at from the previous lesson here, as well as the Metro Style app, the two are really connected. In other words, if we do things like set up favorites here in the desktop version, we'll see those in the Metro Style app. Let's experiment. So we have Internet Explorer up. We're looking at lynda.com here in the desktop version of Internet Explorer 10. We've turned on the menu bar, the command bar. The command bar has the home icon and a drop down. Let's click the drop down and go to Add or Change Homepage. In this case, we want to use the current page. So we'll click the radio button next to Use This web page as our only home page. We'll click Yes, and it becomes our home page. Every time we hit the home button or click the home button up here on the address bar, we'll be taken to lynda.com. Will that apply when we go to the Metro Style app? We'll see momentarily. Let's talk about favorites now. If you have sites that you go to on a regular basis, you can save some time by making them favorites. Then they're accessible from the favorites menu. They're also accessible from the favorites bar. So if you've decided to view this bar and add them there, it's a quick way to jump between sites. So let's add a site like lynda.com here. We'll go to a different place. We'll go to New Releases and make this a favorite. We're always up on the latest releases at lynda.com, and we want to be able to check frequently. So we'll just go over here to the left-hand side where you'll see an Add to Favorites bar button, a little star with the green arrow. By clicking this, it's a little shortcut. It gets added to our Favorites bar. That's the same as going to Favorites and choosing Add to Favorites bar from here. And of course, we can access anything from this menu with regard to favorites. Now we're going to flip over to the other Internet Explorer. That's our Metro Style app. Let's press the Windows key on the keyboard and click Internet Explorer right on the tile here on our start screen. Notice the page that opens up. It's your home page, our new home page that we already set up in the other version. What about favorites? Let's just click anywhere down here in the address bar. Over here on the right, we're going to see some favorites, including, there it is, New Releases. So we can go directly to New Releases right from there by clicking it. So favorites are a great way to jump around to sites you like to visit frequently. And when you set them up in one version of Internet Explorer 10, they show up in the other version as well. Now there's also something called History. Now when we go over to our address bar here and click, we will see frequent sites. These are sites that Internet Explorer is tracking that we visit frequently. It's kind of like a history. Well, what we're going to do now is just press the Windows key and click the desktop tile to go back to Internet Explorer in the desktop environment. There's also a history that's accumulating here as well. You'll notice a little arrow up on the address bar next to the magnifying glass. And when you click this, in private browsing is an option in both versions of Internet Explorer here in Windows 8. And if you share a computer with others and you don't want them knowing which sites you've been visiting, or if you're visiting sites and you don't want those vendors, for example, to know whether you've been there before, in private browsing is a good option. We're going to take a look at it first here in Internet Explorer in our Windows 8 environment. If you don't already have it running, click the Internet Explorer tile on the Start page. Now you'll arrive at your home page, and by default you're not using what's known as in private browsing. If you need to do in private browsing, you actually need to open up a new tab. And to do that, we'll right-click. Up here at the top, you'll see any open tabs, as well as a couple of buttons off to the right. One for creating a new tab, so you can have multiple pages running at the same time. But if you want in private browsing, you actually have to go down to the Tab Tools button right below and give that a click. From here, you can create a new tab, a new in private tab, that is. So when you click it, you'll notice a new page appears, and you're ready to type in the address down below. Notice beside the flashing cursor, you're in private mode. So you can click one of your favorites or frequent sites if you wanted to. I'm going to go to Google, and you'll notice in private stays on. So anywhere I go now will not be tracked in the history. Nothing will appear in my cache. There will be no cookies downloaded. Same thing when going to sites that maybe I have visited before. I won't be sending out information to those sites either. When you want to close a tab, remember you can right-click anywhere to see any open tabs. You'll see those that are not in private as well as those that are, and you can click the X to close up those tabs. All right, let's just press our Windows key to go back to the Start screen and switch over to the desktop where we'll launch Internet Explorer 10 here from our taskbar. If yours is already running, no problem. We can access in-private browsing from this version of IE10 as well. To do that, we'll just go up to Safety here on the right-hand side. Make sure that you're actually viewing your command bar. You can do that by right-clicking up at the top anywhere and ensure a check mark appears next to command bar. The quickest way then is to click Safety and you'll see In Private Browsing. At any time, you can also use the keyboard shortcut Control-Shift and P. So when we click this, you'll notice what happens. We actually have a new page here, and we're looking at In Private mode as indicated by the address bar up at the top. So now it's just a matter of going to a site, and wherever we go, we'll remain in this mode. So you could type in the address, you could go to your favorites, for example, go to one of your favorite pages, and In Private will show up at the top. So that's how you use In Private Browsing here in Windows 8, available in both versions of Internet Explorer 10. Accessing Internet options from Internet Explorer is done a little bit differently depending on the version you're working with. So we're going to look at both right now, beginning with our Start screen here and the Metro Style app of Internet Explorer. Give it a click if it's not already running. Let's use the keyboard shortcut Windows+I. And because we're already in Internet Explorer, we see Internet options over here on the right-hand side. We'll give that a click, and you'll notice it's quite a limited number of settings we have access to here, but any changes we make will affect our desktop version and vice versa. So let's start at the very top here. You can see we can delete our browsing history from here. It may take a moment depending on how much is in that history. Also, permissions down below. Sites can ask for your physical location if this is turned on. So if you want to see relevant information displayed on websites using your location, you might want to turn that on. If you want to be a little more private, leave it turned off. We can also go down and clear any of the location information using the Clear button. We have zoom options here. You can see zoom levels. Something called Flip Ahead, great with touch screens. That can be turned on to improve the browsing experience when there are multiple pages to a website. And then encoding as well can be turned on automatically or turned off. And when you change that selection, you can see it actually closes up the Internet options. And all that means is if you're having difficulty reading text on your screen, maybe it's not the right language, encoding might be the issue, and having it automatically selected for you might improve that situation. So that's all we have access to as far as our Internet options for IE10 here in the Metro Style app. Let's press our Windows key to go back to the Start screen, and we'll go to the desktop version of Internet Explorer now. You may already have it running like me. If not, just go down to your taskbar and you can launch Internet Explorer. All right, to access the options here, if you have the command bar showing, you can go to Tools and from the drop-down select Internet Options. If you don't have this visible right now, you'll also notice the Tools button in the very top right corner here of the screen, just below the Close button. Alt-X is the keyboard shortcut. We'll give it a click and select Internet Options. Now there are many, many more options that we can set from here, and again, changes we make here will affect our Metro Style app as well, like changing our home page. Notice down below that we can delete the browsing history from the delete button or have it deleted always every time we exit our browser. So that's an option that we didn't see in the Metro Style app, although we were able to delete our browsing history from there. We can change appearance, and then we can get into things like security. We can get into privacy. And this is sometimes an issue when sites require cookies, for example. You may need to change your settings, lowering them, and then remembering to bring them back up after. There's a Content tab, Connections if you wanted to. If at any time you're viewing a site in Internet Explorer 10 using the Metro Style app, and you wish you had access to some of the tools, features, and functions of the desktop app, you can invoke it at any time. That's what we're going to do right now. We'll go to our Start screen here and click Internet Explorer if it's not already up and running. Now maybe we want access to some of the desktop features and functions that we don't get here with the Metro Style app, and we want to view this site on the desktop. Well, it's pretty simple actually. If you don't already see this information across the bottom on the taskbar, just right-click, and then we'll go down to the wrench, which is actually our Page Tools. Click there, and you'll notice an option to View on the desktop. Click this and you're actually taken to the desktop. Internet Explorer 10, the desktop version, is launched and you're taken directly to that page. So now you have access to all of those features and functions you didn't have in the MetroStyle app. Let's close this up and go back to our start screen by pressing the Windows key on the keyboard, and we'll continue from here. If there are certain sites you like to visit on a regular basis, you can create a shortcut to them by placing a tile directly here on the start screen. Clicking it will not only launch Internet Explorer 10, but take you directly to that site. So let's see how it's done. We can do it from the MetroStyle app as well as our desktop environment. Let's begin by clicking Internet Explorer here on our start screen. Now let's say there's a certain site that we go to daily. Let's go to new releases, for example, here at lynda.com. Now, if this is something we want to check on every day, maybe multiple times a day, we can create a new tile on our start screen by going down to the bottom and clicking the push pin icon. From here, clicking Pin to Start will create that new tile. So we'll give it a click. And you can see there's some default text that shows up. It comes from the website, new releases, software tutorials, and so on. We can change that. Just click and drag over it like I did and type in lynda.com new releases. When you click Pin to Start, you've just created a new tile on your start screen that will take you directly to this site. So let's close this up. We'll go to the very top. When you see the hand appear, just click and drag straight down to the bottom. And now as we scroll over, we'll find a new tile has appeared, lynda.com new releases. If you want to place it in a more convenient location, just click and drag it over. I'm going to drag it over here. And now I have access to a quick link that will take me to Internet Explorer, but I'll go directly not to my home page, but to this site by clicking it. Let's do that. And sure enough, it opens up the lynda.com site looking at our latest releases. We can also do this from the desktop environment. Let's press our Windows key to go back to the start screen. We'll click Desktop. We'll launch Internet Explorer from the taskbar down at the bottom. If yours is already running, no problem. Let's choose a different site now. Let's go to Support and How to Use lynda.com. Maybe we're learning how to use this site and we want to come back to this on a daily basis. This is an actual course on how to use the actual site. So what we're going to do is create a tile on our start screen that will take us directly here. To do that, we can go to the cog up at the very top right-hand corner for Tools. Alt-X is the keyboard shortcut. And from here, you'll see Add Site to Start Screen. When you click this, you'll see again some information, how to use lynda.com, and then down below where it's coming from. We don't want to change that. We'll just click Add. Now that just got added to our start screen, and it refreshes here, displaying the page itself. So let's go back to our start screen by pressing the Windows key on the keyboard, and we'll scroll over to see if there is a new tab, and sure enough, there it is, how to use lynda.com. I'm going to drag that up and over to the left next to my new releases tile. If you're like many people I've spoken to about the new Internet Explorer 10, you may not be so keen on the new MetroStyle app, especially if you're not using a touchscreen and you prefer to do your work in the desktop version. Well, one thing you might consider then is to set that desktop version of Internet Explorer 10 as your default. So when you click a tile, for example, one of the tiles we pinned to our start screen, or even the Internet Explorer tile itself, you'll be taken to the desktop version where you'll have all of those options and be working in a more comfortable environment similar to previous versions of Internet Explorer. How do we do it? We have to go to the desktop version to set up that default. So click the desktop tile. And if you need to launch Internet Explorer like I do, just go down to the taskbar and click the Explorer icon. Now from here, we're going to go to our tools. Let's go to the very top right-hand corner just below the close button and click the tools icon. Alt-X is your keyboard shortcut. And from here, we'll select Internet Options. Next, we'll go across to the Programs tab, and it's here where you'll see at the very top what's going to happen when you open links in Internet Explorer. By default, Internet Explorer is going to decide for you. Will it open in the MetroStyle app or this desktop version? Well, click the drop-down and you can choose your default, such as always in Internet Explorer on the desktop. When you select that, that is for links. So if we were to click a link at the lynda.com site, now it will open in the desktop version, even if we're in the MetroStyle app when we do it. But we can take it a step further by clicking the checkbox right below, which is labeled Open Internet Explorer Tiles on the desktop. So even the tiles from our start screen will take us to this desktop version. When we click Apply, we lock in those settings, click OK. Let's close up Internet Explorer. We'll go to the top right corner and click the Close button and return to our start screen by pressing the Windows key on your keyboard. Now we can go to either of these tiles that we've pinned or to the Internet Explorer tile itself and click, and we'll be taken to the desktop, launching Internet Explorer, the desktop version, every time. So that's how you set up the default here in Windows 8. Let's go back to our start screen after closing Internet Explorer by pressing the Windows key on your keyboard.